All right. And this is the moderator. I'll go ahead and provide some general instructions for the meeting. This is the moderator meeting. Welcome to the Court Reporters Board meeting. Before we get started, I would like to remind board members and staff who are speaking to please mute their microphones when they are not speaking. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will provide a brief friendly reminder or simply mute your microphone. There are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken, so I please ask that board members and staff identify themselves before speaking. To facilitate public comment today, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board chair reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested at the board's direction, and I will turn on and announce the opening of the Q&A feature. Additionally, for members who are in the public who are participating in the meeting via a computer or tablet, you may indicate you wish to make a public comment in the Q&A box by clicking that raise hand icon at the bottom of your participant panel. For members of the public who are connecting to the board meeting by calling in, you may indicate you wish to make a public comment by pressing *3 to raise your hand. The moderator will call on individuals with raised hands after all individuals who have entered their request via the Q&A feature available when logging onto the WebEx computer session. Please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. If you change your mind and you do not wish to make a public comment, please press *3 again to lower your hand. After you have made your comment, please lower your hand by pressing *3 again. All right, and then members of the public, it is not necessary to identify yourself in order to make a public comment, and I will take comments in the order that they are received. That member of the public will have 2 minutes to make their comments, and I will provide a 30-second time warning. And at the conclusion, your microphone will be muted, and we will move on to the next member of the public who has requested public comment. Please note that the Q&A feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, that member of the public may verbally state their comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board, and such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. If any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. If you do not have a microphone, please click on Audio and Video at the top of your screen and select Switch Audio. If you need further assistance, please refer to that How to Join DCA WebEx event guide that was provided with the board meeting link. And at this point, I will pass it back over to our board chair.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Court Reporters Board. I have also a few housekeeping matters to share before I call the meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded and webcast. Today's meeting will be run in accordance with the Open Meeting Act as required by law. I would ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice board members accessing their laptops, phones, or other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on any agenda item, and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. To better assist the board in accurately transcribing the minutes of the meeting, members of the public who make a comment may be asked to disclose their name and association. However, disclosure of that information is not required by law and is purely voluntary. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you agree with the prior speaker, please do not repeat the comments, but rather state that you agree with the comments already made. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Bruning please call the roll.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Here.
Ms. Hurt?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkeys?
Present.
Thank you. Quorum reached.
Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to remind the board members that we will be taking a roll call vote on all action items. Agenda item number 1, public comment for items not on the agenda. Before we invite speakers to begin, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they provide information to the board members that is outside of the record, which is in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Therefore, such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. The board can receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Board staff is available to speak with you about any pending matter. In addition, the board would ask that the public address the board as a whole and not individual board members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. With that, is there anyone wishing to offer comment?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen. We are also accepting raised hands as an indication for public comment, and it does look like we have an individual who has their hand raised. Individual identified as Charlotte, you will be given 3 minutes to speak in a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Welcome. As a reminder, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and if you choose, please identify yourself and your association for the record.
Certified shorthand reporter 792. It's back at the end of the meeting so then I have comments about
This is the moderator. Charlotte, you are very quiet. I don't know if it's possible for you to get closer to your mic or adjust your input setting, but it's very hard to hear you.
Okay, give me 1 second, please. No, I'm not able to do it. I'll do it on the next section. Sorry about that. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I would just love it if we can put the public comment section back at the end of the meeting instead of at the beginning of the meeting. I think people sometimes have public comments about the meeting itself, and we haven't had the meeting yet. So if we can put that back at the end, that would be great. And then also, if we were at a physical meeting, we would be able to see all attendees because we could look around the room. And I have not been able to figure out at the last couple meetings via this format where we can see who is at the meeting. So if there is a place that we can actually see everybody other than the board, I would love it if we could see everybody. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that information, Charlotte. Is there anyone else that would like to provide a public comment to the board?
This is the moderator. I do not see any further hands raised or requests put into the Q&A feature. Would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
All right. And then just as a reminder to members of the public, if you no longer wish to make a public comment, please click that raise hand icon again to lower your hand.
Agenda item 2 is the approval of the meetings of our minutes of our last meeting on November 20, 2020. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members? And I want to say, I hesitated with that date. It seems like November 20, 2020 was forever ago. I'm sorry for the hesitation. And I'll repeat, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the board members?
No, I'd like to move approval of the November 2020 meeting minutes.
Is there a second? Tony, you're mute.
I second that.
Great. So we have a motion by board member Hurt to accept the minutes, approve the minutes as written, and we have a second. Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll on this item?
Ms. Sunkeys, would you please call for public comment on this item?
Thank you very much. Yes. Do we have any public comments? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, you may either click that Q&A icon and type, "I would like to make a public comment," or raise your hand. And it looks like we do have a couple individuals who have raised their hands. We'll start with individual identified as Mike Hensley. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm using a new configuration. I hope you're able to hear me accurately and clearly this morning. It's nice to see all of you.
We can hear you loud and clear, Mike.
Fantastic. In the interest of accuracy, please look at page 10 of 20 according to the minutes. This is packet page 16 in the PDF. The text lists that the RPR percentage for passing is 97%, and that should be 95%. And that would complete my comment.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has their hand up. Individual identified as Charlotte. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
That was an error. That was from the last section, sorry.
That's all right. Just as a general reminder, if you no longer wish to make a public comment, please click that raise hand icon again to lower your hand. All right, and it doesn't appear that we have any other requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you. So, Ms. Bruning, would you please call roll to vote on this item?
Thank you, Chairperson. Sunkeys, would you like to amend the motion to approve as amended?
Yeah, yes.
Wait, I just want to clarify, this is Board Counsel Rebecca Bond. Are you suggesting the amendment because of the comment from the public?
I'm just asking if the board would like to adopt that amendment and amend their motion.
Meaning,
As the maker of the motion?
Well, wait. So what I'm clarifying is, what is the amendment? And if it's the comment from the public, I just want to clarify whether, that he may be right that the statistic is not right, but what you're adopting is the minutes of what was said. So, are you just trying, you might want to clarify, was that what was said then? Because that's all you're documenting. Or was it said improperly then, and it should reflect the accurate statistic? So, make sense?
It does make sense. I will just say, and then I'll turn it over to the maker of the motion, that it is correct. I'm sorry. The correction is correct, that the minutes should say 95%.
I see, perfect.
Well, yes, they should say 95%. That's what it should say. So I will put that
Perfect,
out
as
there.
long as the board's clear on what they're acting on and what they would be changing and why, that's great.
Right. And so I will turn to the maker of the motion, Board Member Hurt.
So I don't mean to be difficult, but did the person say 97% when it was spoken, even if it's improper, or did they say 95%? And because I don't have that factor detail, I don't want to edit the motion as is. And I just would like to turn to board counsel and make sure that I understand.
I think that's right. I think that makes sense. I think what we're talking about is two layers of facts. The fact of what happened at the meeting versus the statistical fact that the commenter is speaking to. And so because this is in the context of your board meetings, Board Member Hurt is exactly right. It has more to do with that underlying fact of what was said, and your staff might be aware of that. And if they're not aware off the top of their head, then I think it's fair to, to take it as it was documented here, unless you'd like them to go verify according to the video. There's ways to verify, of course, but keep in mind, this is reflecting the underlying fact of what was said at the meeting.
And I will just jump in here and say, this is a report that I personally was giving, and I very well could have said 97%, even though it is actually, in reality, I should have said 95%. So
Well, in that case,
I understand what you're
fair to-
saying.
Yeah, I think it's fair to go ahead and amend it in that case.
Okay. And
Because everyone is reflecting that this is what it should have said, this is what, it's almost the equivalent of a typo, then I think it's fair to do that at that point.
Okay, I will then move with the edit of 95% accuracy, although I will note that she might have said 97%, even though it's supposed to be 95, which kind of flies in the face of the meeting minutes, but I'll make that amendment, hearing board counsel suggests it.
And I'll
second
the amendment.
okay. And for clarification, do we have to open this back up to the public for comment since we've amended the motion? Or can we go directly to vote?
It's, let's see, it's technically been changed, it certainly couldn't hurt. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
This is a moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature once more for public comment, and it does look like we have a raised hand from individual identified as Mike Hensley. Mike, you'll be given a 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, Mike Hensley, President of CCRA. Thank you for consideration of the proposed amendment to the minutes. In response to the comment made regarding what was spoken at the meeting versus what is recorded, it appears that the minutes are captured in a paraphrased manner, capturing the overall essence of what was spoken and not in a verbatim word for word manner. So I would recommend that in order to alleviate future issues in a similar fashion, that the CRB consider having a transcript through the resources of our profession, such as a captioner or a licensed stenographer, to capture what exactly was said so that further issues such as this can be mitigated. Other than that, I have no further comment. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We have another raised hand from individual identified as Mary Pierce. And then I also see we have a comment in our Q&A. I will get to our Q&A question after our raised hand. So Mary Pierce, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. I just want to thank Mr. Hensley for his original comment about the 97 versus 95% and clarify that it's not a statistic, it's a standard that is required to meet in order to pass the test. Thank you very much.
All right, and this is the moderator. We will move on to an individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Kim Huziora. I will be unmuting your microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning, and I am unmuting your microphone now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Kim Kazora, CSR license 8509. I just wanted to mention that on the minutes under agenda item 6, I also was misquoted of something that I said. It was the part where it says this particular transcript was for an insurance fraud situation where the district attorney would need to be used. That was misquoted. What it actually was referring to was just in general, a transcript that reflected what the digital recorded transcript reflected, would not be able to be used in court or be used as admissible evidence. And I would just appreciate if you could go back and listen to what I did say on the recording and correct that for me, because it is misquoted. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and I see no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Actually, before you close, and I don't know if the panel needs to be open for this question. Ms. Kazora, could you point out on page 8 of 20 which paragraph, which line? I missed that and I apologize.
Sure, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, it would be page 8 of 20, which is the second full paragraph that starts with "she stated." It's
Got it.
It goes down to the second from the bottom full sentence that says this particular transcript was for an insurance fraud situation where the district attorney would need to use it for criminal prosecution.
Okay,
Okay, and do you want me to read what I actually said?
sure. Yes.
I actually said, quote, "This transcript was certified by the notary and transcriptionist per CCP 2025.340M. This transcript would not be admissible evidence because it is not a stenographic transcript. As pointed out in the March 2020 attorney email that I submitted, this transcript would be useless in an insurance fraud situation where a district attorney would need to use a transcript for criminal prosecution."
Through the chair.
Yes.
That's a large edit, and I just wanted to find out from our board attorney whether it is necessary to approve these minutes in this meeting. Can we wait and go back and ensure that the minutes are accurate, the veracity of the minutes are accurate, and put this on our next board meeting in light of the multiple edits? In which case, I will pull my motion, but I want to ensure from even Ms. Finner or our board counsel that it's not required to be done in this meeting. It can be done in the next.
That's right. You're not obligated to adopt it this meeting. And then, of course, I'll leave it to Ms. Fenner to discuss any policy concerns.
Thank you. Ms.
Robin,
Fenner?
I was just going to jump in. I wanted to let you know that the minutes are not verbatim, and we would definitely want to correct substantial errors because the information in the minutes would be referred to potentially by future board members just for some historical background on why decisions were made. And I would leave it to the board's decision on whether the edits are substantial and necessary, or if the minutes are sufficient to reflect the discussion. That's your standard, I guess.
Thank you with that information in mind, Chair. I think just specifically because of a public member's comments, that we should just go back and listen and just double check and make sure. And it's not required to pass these minutes in this meeting. And so I would like to withdraw my motion.
I would just be clear that these are not verbatim, so it's not a case of going back to listen to them again. If the public has a correction, then it's up to the board to direct staff to make that correction, but we do not go back and make them verbatim.
Well, I understand that. If Ms. Kazuria or the public commenter expressed that that's not exactly what they said, that's a little bit different. Did we miss the gist of what they said? That's what I would like to make sure on. I understand it's not verbatim, but if there are pieces or the arrangement of that is not reflecting what they were trying to convey, I think it would not hurt to go back and just double check. And at that time, we can also double check on whether 97% was said.
Okay, so we will readdress the minutes at the next meeting.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. So our next agenda item is number 4, the report of our executive officer, Ms. Venner. What do you have for us?
Actually, we have a report from the Department of Consumer Affairs as number 3.
Thank you. So item number 3 is an update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. I'd like to welcome Ms. Mary Catherine Cruz Jones and offer you the floor to present the update.
Good morning, Board Chair and board members. I am Mary Kate Cruz Jones from Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide a department update to your board. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our work for more than a year. Thank you to your EO and board staff who have been working so hard to maintain excellent customer service throughout these challenging times. DCA offices remain open with preventative measures to safeguard the health and safety of our employees and visitors. Boards and bureaus are looking ahead to what changes can be made permanent for our efficiency and employee well-being, such as telework and eliminating paper processes. I encourage all members and the public to visit DCA's COVID-19 webpage for updates and resources on vaccinator information, vaccine distribution, and much more. DCA is receiving many questions about when and how boards will be able to meet again in person. I do not have a definitive answer today, but I would like to offer some clarification. As you know, the ability of the board to meet remotely is tied to the governor's executive orders and the state of emergency. When these are lifted, the board will be required to follow all aspects of the Open Meeting Act, including publicly noticed and accessible locations. We do not know yet when this will happen or if any changes in the law will occur before that date. DCA will do all it can to assist the boards and bureaus to transition safely and with enough time to plan for in-person meetings. We will continue remote meetings, and DCA has created this video background you see behind me to go with the DCA logo that board members can use. If you would like your board's logo added to the graphic, please let us know, and the communications team would be more than happy to provide an updated background. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't see the background. I had it up in Teams when I did my trial run before. I had forgotten to do it in WebEx, but I'd be happy to provide a sample to your EO and you all can discuss later. I would also like to share a few updates to DCA's executive team. In January, Governor Newsom appointed Monica Vargas to the role of Deputy Director of Communications at the Department of Consumer Affairs. Ms. Vargas was an information officer with California's Governor's Office of Emergency Services since 2015. She was also an informational officer here at DCA from 2013 to 2015, and we are so lucky to have her back. In February, Governor Newsom appointed Sarah Murillo as the Deputy Director of Administrative Services at DCA. Ms. Murillo has gained a wide range of experience in her nearly 20 years of service to Californians in various state departments, including California Complete Count Census 2020. Ms. Murillo brings a skill set that makes her well suited to support all the entities within our department. Her appointment fills the final vacancy in DCA's executive office, and DCA is so pleased that she has joined us. One of our top priorities in Board and Bureau relations is appointments, and I would like to provide a brief overview. Currently, the board has 2 vacancies, one public member appointed by the governor and a public member appointed by Senate Rules Committee. DCA and all the appointing authorities share the goal of a fully seated, diverse, and effective board. Filling current and upcoming vacancies is a priority. That being said, if any members know a great candidate or any members of the public attending here today are interested in serving, please find the link titled Board Member Resources on DCA's homepage and apply for appointment. Almost there. Currently, board members, 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year. And not only do employees need to fulfill this training, but we also need our board members to complete it too. As a reminder, newly appointed and reappointed members are required to attend the board member orientation training within a year of appointment or reappointment. DCA is excited about the new and improved training, which has been updated based upon board member feedback and requests. This new training will be held on June 23rd via WebEx, and we ask that you register on DCA's board member resource page located again at DCA's website. Lastly, I'd like to go over new initiatives that Director Kirkmeyer has implemented for 2021 to enhance DCA's services to all board and bureaus. The first is an executive officer cabinet. This group of board and bureau executives have been formed to maintain regular communication, provide feedback and information to DCA, and assist with special projects that impact all boards and bureaus. The group has met several times and is making progress on projects such as standardizing board reporting requirements. The second is the Enlightened licensing project. This work group is helping individual boards and bureaus streamline and make their licensing processes more effective and efficient by utilizing best practices, information technology, and cost-saving measures. The work group has begun to dive into licensing processes at the Board of Registered Nursing, with process improvements that have been implemented in real time. We will continue to update you as these initiatives progress. And as always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help. And if there is anything that we can do to assist, please feel free to reach out to us. That concludes my presentation today. I will hand it back over to your chair. Thank you so much for allowing me time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. We appreciate all the information. Do we have any public comment on the update from DCA?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, you may either raise your hand or click that Q&A icon and type, "I would like to make a public comment." I will pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. This is the moderator. Seeing no requests, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
And now we will move on to agenda item number 4, the report from our executive officer. Ms. Fenner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Sunkis. I appreciate that. I will start off my report with a review of the budget, as I always do. If you look on page 29 of the board meeting materials, you'll find the most current expenditure projections that we have before publication. There are a couple of things that I'd like to point out to the board's attention. You'll see that the overall personnel expenses are lower compared to the historical numbers. That is because our half-time staff services analyst, who was administering the pro per portion of the TRF, gave notice and left at the end of 2020, and we have not filled that vacancy yet. I really want to thank staff for doubling down and picking up the extra duties in the midst of all of our regular work. We are also still dealing with a vacancy, half-time OT vacancy with our receptionist. So that savings is there and staff is picking up the extra duties. Also, I would point out that you'll see a decrease in the operating expenses, and that is largely due to the shift from in-person meetings and in-person testing of the skills portion and switching to the remote platform. There's quite a number. The other place that we're saving with travel is for the exam development workshops. A number of those were held remotely due to the COVID restrictions. So a lot of that is all travel related. Are there any questions on the projections themselves?
I actually do have a question. The surplus at the bottom, 11.7%. How does that compare historically?
So typically we run very lean, I would call it, and that number is usually under 5%. It's been as low as like 1.7%. We're usually just barely above break even. So this is actually a very robust number for us historically.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, if you go to page 30, you'll see an overall fund condition.
This is the moderator. I actually see a hand raised from Davina Hurt.
Where are you acknowledging?
Yes, I
Can I ask-
apologize. Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. I didn't want to jump too quickly away from the surplus, the 11.7%. And I know from the past, that number has been lower, and it also affects the TRF. And I was curious whether we're now in the space, what is the percentage again where we can start doing the TRF fund and taking applications?
So the TRF opened in November of 2020. So we've been open for a number of months.
And what's the percentage that we cannot be below in order to start the TRF again?
So that's a perfect segue into page 30, which is the overall fund condition. If you look at the months in reserve toward the bottom of the page, you'll see the different months, and the threshold that you're talking about is 6 months. So once our overall fund drops below 6 months of operating expenses, then we can no longer fund the TRF.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions?
I do not see any other hands.
Okay. And that was exactly the point that I was going to make on page 30. So thank you, Board Member Hurt, for getting me there. Moving on to page 31 is then the overall fund condition for the TRF. And you can see there, kind of in the middle of the page, a 200,000 number. So all of the reports that are before you reflect $100,000 transfer that's already been transferred over so that we can begin the application processing. And it's anticipated in these numbers that we will make another $100,000 transfer before the end of the fiscal year in June. And so I will turn that over to Paula, but just so you know, overall, that's what's contemplated for this year. But I would have Paula, who has jumped in and taken over the entire TRF processing, since the beginning of the year to give us a little more information on that.
Thank you. I just want to report that as Ms. Finner indicated, the TRF did reopen and begin accepting applications as of November 2nd. To date, we have approved over $86,000 in invoices for the pro bono portion of that program, which was 123 invoices. We have approximately 11 applications pending review at this time. In the pro per arena, we have paid out nearly $6,000 in invoices and approved another nearly $6,000 in requests provisionally approved. So we're waiting for invoices on those. That totals about 50 invoices and applications at this time for the pro per side of it, where there are currently 10 applications pending. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruni.
I would just jump in and say I think it's really impressive that the applications are being processed in such a timely manner. In addition, Paula's taken the lead on doing all of the personnel package for a vacant receptionist position. She's helping to cover the mail and the cashiering duties, and she is our go-to on putting together board meetings and committee meetings. And so she's really taken the brunt of the extra work. So I wanted to say thank you very much for that. Moving on to the enforcement statistics, they start on page 32. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I did have a question on page 31, but Board Member Hurt, your hand is raised. Is that still from the last time?
So I actually wanted to thank Ms. Finner and Ms. Bruning as well, but then Ms. Finner just did the thanks for all the work that's been happening. I feel like everybody's been working double time, and now we have the TRF on top of it and processing those applications. So I just wanted to echo that thanks and also draw the public's attention to the fact that we are doing the applications again, and that's we tightened our belts for several years to get back to this place, and so I'm glad to see it finally come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question on page 31. So my understanding is when the TRF started, it was intended to be funded with $300,000 a year in from renewal fees, licensing fees. And it reflects, page 31 reflects 200,000. I know as a licensee, our dues recently doubled in the last couple of years. And so my concern is that even with that doubling, we're not up to the $300,000 threshold or that it was intended to be. And so I just wondered if you could speak to that, Ms. Fenner.
I can tell you that there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the number of licensees has significantly dropped over the years. We had a large number of baby boomer age reporters that are basically retiring out. And as everyone knows from the state of the schools and the enrollment, we are not getting a sufficient number in right now to replace the number going out. So there is a significant drop in that revenue source, despite the increase in the renewal fee that you noted. The other thing I would note is expenses. Even as our revenue has decreased, our expenses have gone up significantly. We always, as Board Member Hurt pointed out, we always try to run as lean as we can and keep expenses as low as possible. But there are some things that are out of our control, some of the pro rata costs. There are just some basic costs of doing business, whether it be postage or printing or what have you. We are moving to as paperless an arena as we possibly can, but there are still some things that have to be mailed. And so that's creating an imbalance that it's not completely upside down yet, but we're working very hard to stay on top of. But again, we work with the budget office to be very conservative in our figures. And so I would rather have the board count on a $200,000 transfer than mislead you into thinking that we can easily get 300,000. It's possible, but it's way too early to tell.
Thank you.
And I apologize, were there any other questions on the budget before I moved on?
I'm seeing no hands.
Okay. And then the enforcement statistics are on page 32 and 33. In working with our enforcement analyst, there are no new trends as far as the type of complaints that are coming in. Our most common complaint is timeliness of the transcript, somebody having trouble getting a hold of the transcript, or the accuracy, in which case we get the notes and do some comparison, that type of thing. But that's traditionally what our most common complaints are. And do any of the board members have questions on the enforcement statistics?
I'm board member Hurt.
A quick one, since we're in COVID time, and I'm just curious with the investigations, has there been any difficulties or any holdups or?
Well, it's actually worked in our favor in that we don't really have field staff anyway. All of our investigations are desk investigations. But because of the necessity from working at home, that's actually worked in the favor of our enforcement analyst because she is able to work hours that are convenient for her, as well as without the interruption of phones, other coworkers answering the door, the public counter, that type of thing. And so she's been able to catch up on a lot of files that were effectively closed, but not paperwork closed, if that makes sense. So a lot of times, because of the nature of her desk, once that complainant gets that transcript, she kind of sets the file aside, moves on to the next one that really needs something, but then always intending to go back and fully close that out and, get it filed away. But she was able to really get a bunch of files off her desk that were already closed or finished. The work was finished, but not completely closed out paperwork was.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions on the enforcement? Okay, then moving on to the license exam. You can see the pass rates for the 3 portions of our license exam beginning on page 34 of our board materials. Our skills portion continues to be administered online via Real-Time Coach, who is our testing vendor. This last cycle that just ended, we had 63 candidates take the skills portion. We're in the final stages of grading, and the results should go out next week. And I don't know if anyone has any questions on the exam or the exam statistics.
Board member Hurt.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. Chair, would you like to take that now or later?
Now is it in regard to the statistics?
Yes, the dictation exam in particular.
Yes, go.
We're increasingly seeing the numbers go down as far as those total applicants. And there is definitely a concern on my end because I know that the demand is still present. And I understand that the format hasn't really changed since 2008, with the exception of it going online, which I think has allowed possibly more people to participate. So actually, my comment is going to now shift into a little bit of a question, which is, We had said some time ago about online versus in person, and I know some time ago I had made a comment that I think there should always be an in-person opportunity. But the more and more I see these numbers go down in the costs that we discussed earlier in the budget, it seems like only online tends to make sense when we think of the cost of facilities. I mean, the list goes on and of how much we spend as a board, and then we only have, as in November 2020, 74 applicants. So I just want to throw that out there as something we should think about in the future as we begin to open back up, whether that in person still makes sense. I don't know if the executive director had any comments in relation to that and the numbers that we see. So it's kind of a budget as well as dictation exam numbers question.
Thank you.
I would say that from a strictly budget standpoint, obviously that would make sense. Clearly, this board doesn't only take that into consideration. You have always been very mindful of making the decision for the consumer, whatever that may be, the greater good. And if we have to fund it, we have to fund it. We'll find a way to do it. So I think that it's important that you put that consideration out there. I think it's important that the students and the schools start keeping that perspective in mind moving forward. And when we can open up and it's even a possibility, that would be the time to discuss it. But I think it's a really good thing, Board Member Hurt, that you put that out there so people can start thinking about it and just thinking about what the future is going to look like.
I'm going
I
to
think
take
we
the
all need to be mindful. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take the opportunity while we're on this subject to just put out there, I want to acknowledge and thank staff for the quick pivot to the online testing because, and I know we were you were already we were already moving that way, but you were able to work quickly and get that test online. And what I've been reading in the industry, the states that were doing in-person only, they haven't been able to test since the fall, since late 2019. So, but for that, we'd be in the same boat. So I wanted to thank you very much for that quick pivot.
So if there are no other questions exam related, then I would move on to our business modernization, which has been our ability to accept credit cards for online renewals in certain situations. And I wanted to go ahead and ask our staff person, Paula Bruning, if she could give us a little update on how that's been going.
Thank you. I was looking at the trends for the online renewal matrix. As many of our licensees know, there was a delay in some of the notices going out for the March and April renewals being mailed. This was an opportunity to see where the online renewal option could really shine and be helpful. In fact, over the first 7-month period, we saw an average of 92 applications renewed online. And for March, there were 256 applications renewed online. So we're really appreciative of that process that was available, seemed to be helpful. I know that there is a convenience fee that the vendor charges, and that some people were not willing to pay that, which is still an option for them. However, we do note that that charge is significantly lower than what many people were paying for overnight fees to send in their renewals when they realized that their renewal had not been mailed in before their expiration date. So I'd be willing to answer any questions if any of the board has any. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any hands. Ms. Bruning, thank you very much. I see board member Hurt. Her hand is raised.
I just
call.
wanted to thank Paula and Ms. Bruning and Ms. Finner on getting this going and live. We've been talking about being able to pay online for a very long time, and I'm happy to see this. So I just want to send my thanks on making this finally happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And in conclusion, I would just like to let everyone know that the governor's office has extended board member O'Neill's appointment for an additional 120 days, which is great news for us. And I'm echoing the comments from Ms. Cruz Jones that anybody that's interested to serve on the board as a public member, we have the 2 vacancies, and information on how to apply for those is on our website, or you can contact us by email or phone, and the staff, the board office can direct you to where you need to be, or give you more information if you want information on what it's like to be a board member. And that concludes my report, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for the update, Yvonne. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the EO report?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please either click that Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a public comment" or raise your hand. And I see we have 2 individuals who have requested public comment, so we will go in the order that they are received. We will start with individual identified as Kim Kuziora. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, Kim Kuzora, CSR number 8509. Just a quick question on agenda item 4.3, the enforcement activities. The Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative chart on page 32 and 33, I was just on the agenda. I was curious, does it reflect only complaints related to licensees? Thank you.
It's all complaints.
All right, this is the moderator, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Charlotte. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Hello, this is Charlotte Mathias, Certified Shoreline Reporter 9792. So now that we can go online, are you no longer sending out the paper copies if we don't want to do online? Because my birthday is in April and I have yet to receive mine this year. So I'm kind of stuck doing online at this point.
Identify yourself.
Hi, Charlotte, this is Paula. We are still sending out the paper renewals. I don't know why you didn't get yours, but we can talk about that if you want to give me a call or send me an email later. The Aprils were definitely mailed out.
Last year when I did pay my fees, I never got my certificate. I had to call again. So I don't know what's going on. There seems to be something going on. So if you can look into that, that would be great. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Absolutely, and there's definitely something going on as a result of COVID and other restrictions. Just as a brief background, our printing for these types of items, including renewal notices and pocket cards, are processed and mailed by EDD. Obviously, they're inundated with a lot of work for unemployment claims, as well as having some restrictions on staff as a result of COVID contamination, or people who have gotten sick and had to take leave. So they're working very diligently to catch up. I do believe that was probably one of the reasons why you didn't get it last year. But again, since it sounds like you've missed out on a couple of things, we'll talk, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning. Board Member Hurt, you have your hand raised.
Pardon me. I'm used to in my other meetings, someone putting it down for me. Sorry.
No worries. I did want to put out there that I know last year, well, I'll preface this by, I know last year I did not get my renewal. Excuse me. I have I have my the courthouse address as my address on record, and I frequently have trouble getting mail. Unfortunately, important things like checks and my license renewal. And I was able to go online, and there's information online that you can, even if you don't receive your notice in the mail, you can renew your fees via mail, and you just download the document online. It was a few months ago, but just FYI. And with that, I will ask if there are any other members of the public who have comments on the executive officer report.
This is the moderator. I do not see any further requests in the Q&A feature or raised hands. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank
And then
you.
to just quickly speak about the raised hands, unfortunately, I'm not able to lower people's hands, so you will have to control that yourself.
I think we can handle it. We just have to remember to do it. So it's all good. So we will move on to item number 5, license reciprocity. We will start off with item 5.1, which is reciprocity with the state of Texas. As you will recall from the last meeting, Board Member O'Neill and I were appointed as co-chairs to a task force to explore the request from Texas for license reciprocity. As co-chair, I will begin the discussion of this item with a report from the task force. The task force met via video conference with the petitioners from Texas on June 26, 2020. Whoops, I bumped the mute button. To get more details on the reciprocity proposal. From that meeting, we learned that the Texas test is developed for their judicial branch certification commission by one of the state associations, the Texas Court Reporters Association. They use the RPR format, which, just as a reminder, is 5 minutes of literary material at 180 words per minute, 5 minutes of jury charge at 200, and 5 minutes of two-voice testimony at 225, all passed in one sitting with an accuracy rate of 95%. The task force was informed that NCRA's RPR, which is the same format but may be passed in legs, is not eligible for reciprocity in Texas because the RPR is not issued by a government entity. The CRB has entered into an agreement with the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services to analyze the Texas exam. The report is included in the board packet on page 42. Additionally, the agreement includes analysis of the RPR. That review is ongoing and will include a linkage study involving subject matter experts from the industry. We look forward to hearing the results of that analysis. The task force met again on March 29th, 2021 to discuss the information received to date. Staff reminded the committee that we are looking at the skills portion only on the reciprocity issue. So the first decision the task force discussed was if the RPR format is sufficient to prove entry-level skills. A wide variety of other concerns were shared, and ultimately no consensus was achieved. The committee will meet again in May to continue their consideration. Stepping back to my board chair role, I will now ask if there is any member of the public that would like to add any information on this topic.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please click that Q&A icon or raise your hand. And it looks like we do have one individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Charlotte. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning. This is Charlotte Mathias, Certified Shorthand Reporter number 9792 RPR. And I did attend the task force meeting, and I know that originally the RPR was brought to the task force because they were considering Texas and they were similar formats. But the original, I'm a little concerned that CCRA's original request in allowing the RMR and the CRR to be weighed for the skills section has now changed to lowering California's exam standards. I did attend the task force meeting, and we discussed both the Texas briefly, and it was kind of set aside because of OPS. And then it was quite a lot of discussion of the RPR. I will say back on May 20th, 2020, I was originally thought it was a good idea to consider the RPR, and so stated it at the meeting. But since doing some research, I have changed my opinion on the whole RPR matter. So there was a discussion at the task force that the 225 Q&A was way faster than the 224 voice that we have. But again, it's 2 voice versus 4 voice. That 225 words is not that big of a difference when you have the 4 voice kick in. The amount of errors you can reach on the RPR versus the California is double. So when you look at the numbers of, and I'm sorry, I'm going to skip around a little bit. Also, the RPR is in 3 segments, 5 minutes each. They don't have the 10 to 12 minute sustained speed, and that is substantial for this exam. Oh, what else is there? So when I look down at the actual errors that you can miss, for example, on the RPR versus the CSR California exam, per minute, if you break it down, on the RPR, you can miss 9 errors a minute between the 3 tests. If you look at the California, you can miss 5 errors per minute. Also, the RPR counts a speaker misidentification as 1 error, and the California counts it as 5 errors. At the task force, I know we were only supposed to be discussing the skills, but the written exam did come up, and I know I don't know which speaker mentioned the written exam. However, the NCRA's written exam does not include English, medical, or legal terminology. Also, there was discussion that we should consider the
30
RPR
seconds.
if it was given in one setting. However, I emailed Sandra Bryant, the credentialing coordinator of NCRA, and the RPR is no longer given in one sitting. So that's a moot point. They can take it in the same day, but not in the same sitting. So for all those foregoing reasons, I hope the board will just move to set aside considering the RPR as a substitute for our current skills portion, as I believe this lowers the exam requirements substantially and is not to the best interest of the consumers of California. Thank you.
All right. And it looks like that was our only, oh, I apologize. We do have a raised hand as well, a couple raised hands. So I will go in the order that they appear. First, we will go with an individual identified as Mike Hensley. Mike, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak in a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is Mike Hensley, president of CCRA. And just for the sake of keeping this information at front of mind in this topic, I would like to reiterate the fact that California already implements the RPR as part of its testing eligibility structure. The RPR allows applicants to sit for the California exam and thereby further prove their competency to practice in our state. And statistically, we have seen that RPR candidates taking the California test have a very high success rate, especially in the first-time pass rate for our exam. Therefore, it would behoove us to look at other options, such as the RMR and CRR that have been previously discussed, to allow for a high caliber additional demographic to be incorporated into our licensing pool. The RMR and CCR are a higher standard exam that that demonstrate elevated skills in our profession. And in fact, they are on par or even higher caliber standards than our California CSR exam, and therefore are comparable to the exam and should be kept in consideration as part of this discussion. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the moderator, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Mary Pierce. Mary, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. Mary Pierce, CSR 6143. And while I am the president of Deposition Reporters Association of California, these comments are my personal comments alone. I would not be in favor of making the RPR an equivalent to the state license test administered in California because, as Ms. Mathias noted, the error standard would be doubled, and there's some very intense litigation that goes on in California, and I'm not in favor of lowering the standard by double in order to be licensed here. I think it could impact consumers, and that is my concern about that. If we are going to entertain some sort of reciprocity, I would like it approached in a step-by-step, and if you make the RPR, it would be a massive step. And I think that if you are going to consider the RPR, it should be in conjunction with another test and not just the RPR alone. We're hoping that schools are going to recover soon. 10 years ago, it was a very poor environment to consider going to court reporting school. It is a good environment now, and we're trying to get those numbers up and hope that we can educate our way out of any potential shortage that may or may not exist. Remote depositions is helping us with that, and I don't want to see a rush to lowering the standard of the California court reporters qualifications. Thank you very much.
All right, this is the moderator. It looks like there are no further requests for public comment. And just as a general reminder to lower your hand, you'll want to click that raise hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen or press *3. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
Ms. Fenner, did you have some information to share on the entry-level skill?
Yes, thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I just wanted to point out that it's easy to get caught up in my state's better than your state. And so I want to remind the board members in particular and possibly educate the industry that what we do in setting standards for our license exam is to ensure that anyone that has our license has entry-level skills sufficient to report safely for the consumer. So we're not talking that a test is better than another test. It's just whether the format of the test is sufficient to test those for those entry-level skills. That is the standard for us being the Court Reporters Board issuing a certificate or a license. That's our standard. So I just wanted to be real clear on that. The other thing, I would caution against trying to compare numbers to numbers. It's a percentage. So right now, our test is scored at 97.5%, and the RPR and the other states that are using the RPR format are scoring at 95%. So that's not half the number of errors by any means. Yes, it is lower, and that is a decision for the board, but I just want to make sure that you're clear that it's not half in the raw numbers. It's a percentage.
Thank you very much. Do any other board members have any comments on this issue, on this agenda item? I would thank everyone for sharing your perspectives, and I'm sure that the task force will take them into consideration in our next meeting, in our further discussions. So we've covered the status of the RPR reciprocity issue by noting that we are awaiting the OPES to complete its validation report. The issue of allowing RMRs and CRRs to be able to practice provisionally will be held open until the task force completes its recommendations to the board. And I would say before we move on to the next agenda item, we will take a 15-minute comfort break and we will resume at 10:30. Welcome back, everyone. I will remind you this meeting is being recorded and webcast. And we will start up with agenda item number 6, legislation. Ms. Finner, would you like to present this agenda item to us?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. Beginning on page 44 of the board agenda packet, you'll find all the bills that I'm tracking right now. 6.1 through 6.5 are bills that relate more generally to how the board operates, such as requiring meeting materials to be posted to the public at the same time that the board members get them, or expanding temporary licensing requirements to honorably discharged members of the military. I didn't see anything really rising to the level of the board weighing in on the bill, but I'm happy to be overruled if any of the board members would like to discuss any of those in more detail.
I am not seeing any hands.
Okay, then I would turn the board's attention to item 6.6, which is SB 241 by Senator Umberg. This is the new bill number for our firm registration language from last year. The bill was heard before Senate Business Professions and Economic Development on April 5th, where I worked with board member Hurt of the firm registration subcommittee to draft remarks in support. The bill was passed out of the committee unanimously, 13-0. The bill is double referred, so it will now be heard before the Senate Judiciary Committee on April 20th. And this time Ms. Hurt does have time in her calendar to do the testimony on behalf of the board. The letters of support are in the board materials, just for your information. But I also wanted to publicly thank Senator Umberg's office for recognizing the position that the board is currently in with regards to the jurisdiction over foreign corporations, and thank him for his help in pursuing such a simple, fiscally responsible solution to our problems. And that concludes my report on legislation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board or the public may have.
Do any members of the board have comments or concerns before we go to the public? Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board on SB 241?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, you may wish to indicate you would like to make a public comment by either raising your hand or using the Q&A feature. And I will go in the order that the requests are received. So we will begin with individual identified as Kelly. Kelly, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Shainline, CSR 13476, co-founder of Protect Your Record Project, and most importantly, I'm speaking to you today as a California consumer. I oppose SB 241. SB 241 does not protect the consumer. I fear for the day that myself, a family member, or friend have to sit for a deposition or testify in court. The possibility of having no certified shorthand reporter to produce an accurate record is a disturbing thought, and the potential to have their personal information be stored in a database by venture capitalists. The current practices that are being engaged in are putting California's records at risk, and SB 241 does nothing to address the digital bait and switch activity currently going on. SB 241 protects venture capitalist-owned reporting firms, currently not allowed in California. SB 241 shields a corporation by placing a certified shorthand reporter instead of the non-CSR owned court reporting firm to answer for all wrongdoing by a huge corporation. I believe it was stated by the CSR board's executive officer that this will promote competition in the marketplace. As we have seen over the years, as the board has not enforced current law and the practice of non-licensee owned firms run rampant, the marketplace has seen an increase in costs directly to the consumer and usually the consumer who never hired the firm. The competition of certified shorthand reporters is now between themselves and what the corporate firms will pay reporters. The competition has no impact on the marketplace for the actual consumer of court reporting services. It only adds to the profit margins of the corporations. This bill is actually taking away the competition as there are very few CSR owned firms left. And with the passage of this bill, I suspect there may not be any left. This does not even the playing field. It eliminates the field completely. I understand from the letter of support to the legislature and the executive officer testifying at the last hearing before the legislature in full support that the CSR board supports this bill. But I ask, when was there a meeting by the CSR board to discuss and vote on support of this bill? I only ask because I do not see it anywhere in any minutes and wonder if the board has fully complied with the Begley-Keene Act. I would ask the board to oppose SB 241 with its current language. Thank you for your time.
Seconds. All right, this is the moderator. We will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. And just as a quick reminder for those who are audio only, if you would like to request to make a public comment, you may raise your hand by clicking *3. And our next individual who has requested public comment, individual identified as Kelly Shalane. Kelly, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. Oh, I apologize, Kelly, you already spoke. Looks like your hand is still up. So we'll actually move on to Mike Hensley. Mike, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning. This is Mike Hensley speaking as president of CCRA, the California Court Reporters Association, responsible for representing all members of the stenographic profession, large business owners, small business owners, individual freelance court reporters, official court reporters, captioners, cart providers, and students entering the profession. In the interest of brevity, I will highlight our position and supporting bullet points. I would also encourage further communication between us and any interested individuals for further clarification and explanation of these opinions. At this time, CCRA stands in opposition of SB 241 unless the bill is amended. Now is not the time to enact a broad, sweeping, vague legislative action in relation to the allowance of remote participants in the court process. In fact, this element of SB 241 is questionable for why its presence is there in the first place. CCRA would prefer that a work group be enacted to further flesh out the potential validity and usefulness of remote appearance in the court system so that fair and equal access can be made available to all participants, those who are involved in litigation and those who work in the court systems on a daily basis. Firm registration does not answer the issues of problematic behavior that we see in our industry. The language in the bill at this time leaves too many questions, too many loopholes, and requires too many additional statute changes to be a sufficient problem solution at this time. We are open to furthering the discussion to see if this could indeed become a viable option in the future. However, at this time, there are far too many questions that need to be answered before we are confident that it can be a useful tool. Ultimately, the idea of firm registration does not level the playing field for all professionals in the industry. Those who own small boutique firms, those who own medium-sized corporate firms, and those who own large mega corporations. SB 241 puts individual reporters and small firms at risk for becoming obsolete and wiped out by venture capitalists or those who wish to inundate the market and take advantage of their leverage and their capital power to infiltrate our profession. CCRA is open to further discussion and explanation of its opinions. We urge the board to oppose SB 241 unless it is amended. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Charlotte Matthews, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. This is Charlotte Mathias, Certified Shorthand Reporter 9792 RPR. Thank you for the 3 minutes. I'm confused because I thought I had 3 minutes on the last one, but we only had 2. So there's mixed messages on your email saying we had 3 minutes. So I just want to let you know, thank you for the 3 minutes. I'm a little confused about how this was just stated that SB 241 is the exact language from a previous bill when there is more to this bill than firm registration. So I don't know if the board has actually looked at the entire bill, because there's a whole section about remote reporters and participants in court, and that was not ever considered, I don't believe, by the board. So I'm a little confused as to how the board has already stated before the Senate that they are for it if you have not voted for it here at a court reporters board meeting. So I am opposed to this being approved. There's too much of a mess and the language is not clear and concise at all on this whole bill. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Mary Pierce. Mary, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. Mary Pierce, CSR 6143. Again, I'm the president of Deposition Reporters Association of California. CalDRA is in support of this bill. At this time, we're taking no position on the remote reporting language. We would like to continue to monitor that and any amendments that may be made to the language to make it a little more clear. But as far as the actual firm registration language, Ms. Kuziora points out about, or actually I believe it was Kelly Shainline, pointed out that current laws are not being enforced. And while I agree with that, it has been tried. It was not successful. It was very lengthy, costly, and ultimately unsuccessful. If you have laws that aren't working, we are in favor of new language and new laws that can be enforced. The national agencies have been here for 2 decades and more. They are not being regulated, and we think that this bill is the best chance to get this equal playing field that seems to be in dispute, but we believe that this is the best chance to give the small agency owners like myself the opportunity to survive by making the national agencies follow the same laws, regulations, and statutes that we have to follow. They can engage in things that we can't do, and that gives them the advantage. And for these reasons, CalDRA does support you in supporting this bill. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Kimberly DeUrso. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you, Chair and Board. The problem is that it doesn't level the playing field. It makes the playing field lopsided for the foreign corporations, and the penalties are on the California CSRs. This bill is poorly written. I'm confused when I hear Ms. Fenner state that it's uncomplicated, well-vetted, and fiscally smart. I don't agree after reading this bill and analyzing it over and over. I think it's confusing at best. It does not outline registration and enforcement protocols definitively. It does not address fiscal impact on consumers, and it has not been vetted by licensed stenographic reporters. The tangible threat facing California consumers in the court reporting field is the digital recording bait and switch scheme being perpetuated on consumers by unlicensed foreign corporations. Right now, the CRB is doing nothing to enforce on the fraud being committed by recorders calling themselves court reporters, even though we believe BMP 8018 allows for that title protection. Attorney consumers are being defrauded. They believe they are getting stenographically trained and licensed court reporters, and they're receiving unlicensed digital recorders hired off of Craigslist. We absolutely, as the Protect Your Record Project, oppose SB 241. It needs more thought. We need to be forward thinking. We need to think about the loopholes. We need to think about those like the defense counsel who are supporting this bill and ask ourselves why that's happening. One of their lobbyists is a lobbyist that works for the big box firms who sends out digital recorders. We believe that this bill harms more than it does good, and we need to think about it. I like the idea from CCRA that we need to have more conversation among the stakeholders and take our time to make sure it's responsible legislation. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and it looks like that was our last individual who has requested public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Ms. Fenner, did you have any comments that you would like to share?
I would just like to address the comment that there's a potential violation of the Begley-Keene Act. The language as it pertains to the firm registration is so identical to AB 1469 by Assemblymember Lowe from last year that originally, when it was published, it still had an effective date of July 2021. So clearly it was just lifted out, and that is the language that the board supported during the last year's legislative efforts. It is true that there are amendments, including amending that date out a year so that we have time to actually implement it, as well as the addition of the language associated with the remote reporting. Because of the importance of the firm registration bill and the seemingly benign phrasing of the remote reporting addition, the board is going forward in support. If you want to offer a motion by any of the board members to accept it in its new number, including the other language remote associated with remote reporting, we can do that. It's at the pleasure of the board.
Thank you. Do any of the board members have any further comment on this, on any of the legislation? Board Member Hurt?
Thank you. I actually don't have a comment, but I have a question for Ms. Finner. Ms. Finner, how many years have we worked on firm registration? Do you recall?
Yes, this is a trick question. Since 2008. So, I mean, the very earliest iterations came through Mendoza's office way back when. And we've been taking baby steps forward. Ms. Hurt, obviously you were involved intimately when we were working with Assemblyman Kalra in getting another baby step forward. So I think that it has been a long road for us. I think that it's important that the jurisdiction of the board be clarified so that we are able to act. That's the biggest loophole that's being closed with this particular legislation.
Thank you. I think I'm going to leave it there. There's so much in previous minutes that express my feeling on this topic. And I know we've done prior litigation. There's so many different ways that we've tried to quote unquote put equity in this space. So I am ready to move forward. That'll conclude my comments.
Thank you. Board Member O'Neill.
Okay, pick your, my unmute button disappear for 3 seconds. Okay, I would echo or agree with Ms. Hurt's comments about the history and about this bill. You know, it has already indicated support in this. Unfortunately, you know, you see, you know, it's not we are, but it has seen the pattern as Ms. Hurt said, is as far as baby steps are concerned. I would like to get everything done in one bill, but I would say that'd be wishful thinking on my part. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And Chair Sunkis, this is your executive officer again. I just wanted to let you know that I don't believe that it's necessary to do the vote because we have it in the past minutes for the language, because there is the addition of the remote reporting that does make it different. If you'd like to clean that up and have one of the board members offer a motion in support, that would be fine.
Thank you. Are there any motions from the board members in regard to support for SB 241 in its current language?
I would make that motion that the CRB come to support this bill in its current form.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Board Member O'Neill to support SB 241 in its current form, and we have a second by Board Member Hurt. And my understanding, yes, Board Member Hurt.
Just wanted to have a quick question. I guess this is the moment for a discussion and additional public comments. If the bill is amended, because the way the motion is phrased, are we affected and have to come back before the board?
And I guess that was my fault because I threw in there in its current form or current language. And actually I was referring to the fact that the language was lifted from the last bill and put into SB 241. That was my fault for using that language. I didn't mean to imply, right, create more problems.
Chair, we could also add in what we have done in years past, which is to authorize the subcommittee, which is Davina and Tony, to look at the legislation as it moves forward to act between board meetings. They have that authority right now, and we can just affirm that we are continuing to grant them that authority as the subcommittee to act in our stead.
Okay. So I need a clarification on,
I'm sorry,
do
can
we
I
need that?
can I
Yeah, go ahead.
interrupt?
Yes, please interrupt.
So, Ms. Bruning has corrected me that the original subcommittee was Davina and Carrie Notella. It wasn't Tony. And so I apologize for muddying that water. So Davina, it's on your shoulders. If you're comfortable with that, then we can leave it as a one-person subcommittee.
I'm comfortable with it if the board is comfortable with it. I have been on this topic for quite some time, and I would also like to just quickly say to the public, I'm open to emails and comments and conversations, but I am definitely willing to continue serving as a subcommittee if the board so pleases.
Thank you, Ms. Hurt. So for my understanding, do we need to amend the motion? Does the motion need to be amended, or can we move forward with the motion as is with the understanding that board member Hurt would have the authority to act on any amendments to the language in between board meetings?
I think it might be useful to clarify that because of some of the confusion that's happened, it might be useful to clarify that I take it your motion is, or to restate the motion if this is the case, that what the board is supporting is the meaning of the language in the current bill. Therefore, it's not that you're authorizing, you're not authorizing support of any amendments or changes. You're authorizing support as the bill goes forward with this particular meaning or intention is how I gather. If that makes sense. That way, if it's entirely amended and it's entirely different, that no longer is in line with what the board is moving to support today. So you've got the new bill number, you've got the current language, you've got the meaning, and that the meaning is what you're supporting as it goes forward, it sounds like.
Thank you. And was that the intent of your motion, board member O'Neill?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And was that the intent? Were you seconding that motion, Ms. Hurt?
Yes, I will second the restated motion stating that we're going along with the meaning, and if I'm delegated what she said. Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ruin.
So with that motion, I will open it to public comment. I will remind the members of the public to please not repeat your comments that you've previously made, but if there are any additional comments to the motion, I would welcome that at this time.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you may either click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or raise your hand. And for audio-only participants, you may raise your hand by pressing *3. And we will go in the order that comments and raise hands were received. So we'll begin with Kimberly DeUrso. Kimberly, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make a comment that with regard to the comment that was made on past litigation, there were reasons why that failed. Some things weren't done properly. And as far as legislation, we should really be working on legislation that protects consumers, like title protection for court reporters. SB 241 will not fund, my understanding, the Court Reporters Board to ensure that it audits unlicensed foreign corporations so that they finally follow the law. As I understand from Yvonne, the jurisdiction will remain complaint driven and powerless when it comes to ensuring court reporting firms are following the laws of the state of California. Why do I think that? Because I don't believe the CRB will ever enforce on digital recorders, because I believe that you will say that they don't come under your jurisdiction, which is to the favor of these unlicensed foreign corporations in California, to the detriment of actual stenographic court reporters in the state of California. And it's just another loophole that California consumers will suffer, yet the end result is you making the activity, the illegal activity of the foreign corporations in California finally legal and unilaterally penalizing California CSRs. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and we will move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Individual identified as Carolyn Dasher, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak in a 30-second warning. I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning. Nice to see you all. Thank you for your service. I just wanted to comment on the Section 3 that allows the remote reporting for witnesses in court proceedings. And I think that the board supporting that section is a disservice to the public, because courts are using different types of equipment to achieve that, to achieve remote reporting at this point with the emergency orders, and to put that in law and combine it into a bill with the registration requirements, I think is wrong, because it needs to be looked at separately. There needs to be a working group along with many court workers. We're seeing many different problems. I have people calling me personally with issues with the remote reporting in the courtrooms now, and to allow a witness not to be there is to put the licenses on the line, because they will not be able to be present to have the witness restate things if they need to. I mean, we have problems all over the state. Judges are turning off the court reporters' microphones and not allowing them to stop the proceedings. Every court does it differently. There's thousands of judges in the state. I just don't see how the board can support that particular section. Thank you.
This is a moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. And as a reminder for those with raised hands, if you no longer wish to make a public comment, please lower your hand. Next individual is Charlotte Mathias. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak in a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, this is Charlotte Mathias, certified Shorthand Reporter 9792 RPR. I don't know how the board has ever voted on this bill in its entirety again. I know they voted on a segment of this bill in prior meetings, but not this bill. And in fact, I don't even think Chairperson Sunkees was on the board at the time that you voted for this prior one. So this new bill is very different. And I don't know if the board has gone through the electronic recording issue at all. There is a pilot project right now in Santa Clara County that just finished, and they haven't even issued the report to the legislature to say whether it was a success or not. So how in the world can you possibly support something that hasn't been tested? I think that that's just not ripe. This bill is not ripe. And I think the board supporting it is a big mistake to the consumer. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We'll move on to our next individual who has requested public comment. Mike Hensley. Mike, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak in a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
Thank you. I'd like to provide an example for the board to keep in mind in relation to the concept of leveling the playing field. In the past, the board has made comment that it has jurisdiction over the licenses of court reporters. That is a finite resource. Each reporter is entitled to one license and one license alone. This language is seeking to use monetary sanctions through fines or other civil penalties to keep these foreign corporations in check. That's essentially an infinite resource. How is it a level playing field when you have an all or nothing punishment on one end of the scale and an infinite, unending resource that can be in order to regulate the other side of the scale? This bill needs to be further fleshed out, further worked out. There is a solution available, but in its current form, it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what needs to be addressed here. And I would highly encourage the board to look at all sides of the argument in order to make their decision. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
I apologize. I was on mute. Yes, please.
All right.
So is there any further discussion on the motion? Do I need to restate the motion and before I call for the vote? Or can I just ask Ms. Bruning to please take a roll call vote?
I'm ready for roll call. Ms. Hurt?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkeys?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning. I'm sorry, apologize. So we're moving on to agenda item 7.1. Ms. Finner, would you update us on where we are with AB2138 regulations?
Thank you, Chair Sunkeys. I'm actually going to pass this one over to Ms. Rogers, who is our regulations attorney, and she's going to give us our update on that particular package.
Good morning, everyone. This is Danny Rogers. This package has been filed with the Office of Administrative Law, and it is currently pending, and it is due to be completed by May 13th, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Moving on to 7.2, Ms. Finner, can you tell us why this is appearing under regulations rather than legislation?
Yes, I can. So at our last meeting, the board did instruct staff to reach out to stakeholders and try to find an author for legislation to limit the use of the terms court reporter and deposition reporters to CSRs. So after the meeting, it was suggested that perhaps the better route would be to achieve that via regulations. So staff is currently working with Ms. Rogers and Ms. Bond to explore that option a little bit more fully, and I will have more information at our next board meeting.
Thank you.
And moving right on to agenda item 7.3, we do have a new request for a regulations change that was submitted by a consumer. The request is to ensure that all of the transcripts be provided in a searchable format. So currently, it's an option for court reporters to provide the transcript electronically. And I understand from discussions with our board chair that there is a rule of court that requires that the transcript be searchable, but that it won't take effect for a number of years. So this request from staff on staff side seems completely reasonable in light of the current requirements by courts to submit all documents electronically. So it's our recommendation that the board appoint a chair to establish a task force that can develop the language. Basically, we'll need some court reporters that have the technical know-how to craft it so that we can turn that over to our reg attorney to make sure that it fits with a change to the MTFS.
Thank you. We have a recommendation from staff to convene a task force to develop regulatory language to bring back to the board at a future meeting. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item before the board makes a decision?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or raise your hand. Audio-only participants can raise their hands by clicking *3. And I see a hand raised from Kimberly DeUrso, but I am not sure if that was left over from last time. And she still has it raised, so I will go ahead and give her 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. Kimberly, I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Sorry about that. You can take my hand down. I did not mean to have that.
I
My
apologize. I
apologies.
cannot lower your hand for you, so you'll need to click that raise hand icon again to lower it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this is the moderator. All right, does look like we have a request for public comment from Charlotte. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I am unmuting your microphone now.
This is Charlotte Matthias. I guess my question was to Yvonne when she said that the courts are requiring that we submit everything searchable. Is that correct?
Actually, I believe what she was referring to, I had shared with her that the rule of court, the current rules of court that were adopted in July of 2017 their specific rules with additional requirements for transcripts submitted electronically. And although those requirements are currently in place, there was this long grace period for reporters who were unable to comply with those requirements due to their software. So those requirements go in effect January of 2023.
So this is for the officials when they have to submit them to court. Am I correct on that? You're not talking about deposition per se?
This is court, correct?
Okay, so is this, when we look into this, are you going to be requiring deposition reporters to be providing this also? Because we don't usually submit our documents to court unless you guys want to change the code and how we go back and put the original to court that way and get rid of the SoCal STIP. But otherwise, that's really the onus on the attorneys when they submit the transcripts to the court, not the CSR.
My understanding of this item, and frankly, I think it's timely because, we have moved to providing our transcripts electronically. We should be providing the best product to the end user. I would think as licensees, that's what we would want to do. I would imagine that the freelance side of it is, well, I don't need to go into a whole lot of background, but this would be the minimum transcript formatting standards. We're talking about addressing them for all licensees, not just court, and not just transcripts provided to the court.
So then would an ASCII, which is searchable, suffice as a minimum transcript versus just a PDF that is searchable?
These are issues that would be addressed by the task force.
Okay, so I hope the task force takes that into consideration because not all reporters want to provide a PDF that's searchable and also editable. We would like to leave that alone so that the original is still the original, and can't be manipulated. Thank you.
All right. This is the moderator, and it looks like there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
So with that background, is there a board member that would like to offer a comment? Board Member O'Neill, your hand just went down. Okay. All right. Would one of the board members like to take the initiative to be the chair of the task force? And now I see both hands raised. I don't know who went up first. Board Member O'Neill?
I would volunteer to be on that task force.
Fabulous.
And
Do we have any further comments? Board Member Hurt?
I just have a quick question, and I apologize I didn't ask it earlier, but when was the last time that this regulation was amended, this government code? Do you know, Ms. Finner?
So it's not a government code. This government code is referring to the request for the board to change or enact a regulation. So the actual MTFS is a regulation. And that was put in place before I was the EO, and so I would say it would be probably in the late 2000s, like around 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
Okay. Thank you. I was surprised when I saw this, that this wasn't a possibility. So I'm glad we're moving forward and ensuring it is in regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone in attendance is interested in being on this task force, I'd ask that you reach out to Paula Bruning or Yvonne Fenner, who will be helping facilitate those task force meetings. So we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is a status report on how we are doing on our strategic plan. Ms. Fenner, will you start us off?
So starting off, I would just update the board that our publication that's entitled 5 Reasons to Hire a Licensed Court Reporter has been shared with the California Lawyers Association with a cover letter or cover email noting that it's a best practice for the attorney to request the CSR number before the beginning of their proceedings. We know that there are a variety of state and local attorney associations out there. And after we're fully staffed, it is our hope that we'll be able to share that publication directly with the other associations that are out there. We're just spread a little bit thin right now. Do you want me to go on to the best practices? Or do you want to take that one?
Well, actually, I want to ask if any board members have a comment. I see 2 hands, and I don't know if those are left over from the last agenda item. Board Member Hurt?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the work on getting this up and passed on to the California Lawyers Association for distribution. I know with all the things that we have to do, this was a heavy lift. And so I appreciate the effort to get that done. And I just wanted to suggest or welcome other court reporters to go online. I understand this is online, and they can forward this to attorneys that they know so they can help us in this effort to educate everyone who should be aware of choosing licensed court reporters.
Thank you. Is there a member of the public that would like to make a comment on this agenda item? 8.1.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or raise your hand. Audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3. And I will go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. This is the moderator. Seeing no requests, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
Seeing no public response, we'll move on to agenda item number 8.2. At the last meeting, we received some comments on the proposed best practice pointer for remote reporting. Co-Chair O'Neill and I took those back to the Best Practice Pointers Committee, and the revised document is submitted beginning on page 57 of the board packet for the board's consideration. Is there any member of the public that would like to offer a comment before the board makes a decision on the staff recommendation to approve the best practice pointer?
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a public comment, you may click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or click the raise hand icon, and audio-only participants can raise their hands by clicking *3. It looks like we do have a request from Mike Hensley. Mike, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Good morning. This is Mike Hensley, president of CCRA. And I would like to recognize the efforts of the task force and thank the participants for their efforts in creating this document. I'd also like to thank the board for allowing the opportunity to create this resource for our stenographic professionals. CCRA stands in support of the document as provided. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and seeing no further requests for public comment, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
With that background, is there a board member that would like to make a comment or a motion? Board member Hurt?
I'd like to move approval of the best practice pointer number 11. I remember when we did the very first best practice pointer, that was, I think, really important, and I'm glad that we were able to provide this resource and build upon it. Now we're at best practice pointer number 11, and this is great. So I'd like to move this practice pointer.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Yes, I would second that motion.
Great. Is there any further public comment before the board votes?
This is the moderator. I have once again opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you wish to make a public comment, you may click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or raise your hand. And it looks like we do have a request from Charlotte. Charlotte, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 30-second warning. I'm unmuting your microphone now.
Hi, this is Charlotte Mathias, certified shorthand reporter number 9792 RPR. With the remote depositions, it has come quite a, I don't know what word I want to use, quite a lot of discussion, and it's not addressed here. And I know there is a code that talks about it, but the code is as clear as mud for most court reporters. So I would love it if the board could at least come up with the best practices to add to this, and that is, can a California certified shorthand reporter swear in a witness in another state who has their own notary and or CSR swearing in laws? I don't know if attorneys are allowed to stipulate that we can swear in a witness in another state. There is the 10th Amendment of the United States where each state has its own laws. And I am concerned that even if they stipulate that I can swear in a witness in Texas who has their own court reporting and notary laws, that witness may not be under penalty of perjury. I am not a lawyer. I cannot understand that language for sure. I would love it if we can get an actual opinion on whether we are breaking the law. And as guardians of the records, we should not be breaking the laws if we're swearing in a witness in another state. And this has been going on long before COVID. Ever since video conferencing came in, I know I've called the board and asked for advice on it. And the original recommendation was to get a notary in New York to swear the witness in. now reporters are getting different mixed messages of whether we can do this. We need a best practices. Can we do it? Can we not? I know you don't create the laws, but you do give us best practices and interpret the laws for us to make sure we are following them. Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and it looks like there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
Do I have any other comments from the board? Or Ms. Fenner? So we have a motion and a second to adopt the best practice pointer number 11. Ms. Bruning, will you call the roll?
Thank you, Ms. Hurd.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkeys.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. And turning to our final agenda item under the strategic plan is the action plan update. Ms. Fenner?
Thank you. On page 59 of the board agenda materials, you'll find the updated action plan. We put this before you at every meeting so that you can see what we've done and what we have left to accomplish. And as always, we ask for any priority changes that any board member would like us to focus on. I would just like to let you know that we are very close to having our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter accounts go live. We are still working, I know, we are still working on trying to find images. I don't know if you've tried to find an image related to court reporting that has a steno machine that's from this century. It's difficult. And so it's hard to go from something very generic like the scales of justice or something, relating to the legal field, but there's just not a lot out there. But that's our biggest hangup right now. We're trying to get a good graphic so that the board can be well represented on all levels. Any questions or input from the board?
Thank you for that information. Do we have any comments from the public on the action plan?
This is the moderator. Once again, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, you may click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand feature. Call-in audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3. All right, and this is the moderator. It looks like there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you. So I would open it up to comments by the board and board member Hurt. You have your hand raised.
Yes, I actually had a question earlier, and then I guess I'll make a comment or so on if I look at our action plan timeline, there are a couple of things that are past due, and we know COVID has made a huge impact on things getting accomplished. I'm glad to hear Facebook is going to be up and going soon, so that'll take out one of these. But I am curious about the investigating real-time captioning standards and assess industry practices for consumer protection. Could Ms. Finner speak a little bit about where we are, any issues surrounding captioning, any details that would help us decide whether that continues to be a priority or not?
So the board does not currently have any jurisdiction over captioners. And so we don't get complaints from the public because they probably don't know to complain to us because there's no nexus. This is on our strategic plan because of anecdotal reports of captioning being not up to industry levels. And as I explained to the board during our strategic plan, really, if we're looking to expand our oversight, we go through the opposite of the sunset review process. It's called a sunrise process. And what we need to do is compile the reason that we think that the board needs to oversee a particular segment of the industry, for example, the captioners. So we would need to gather complaints and substantiate our case for consumer harm, basically. So that is not something that we have put any staff resources to. We have literally not had time to do that at all. It's still part of our strategic plan that the board approved, but I will say it's not got a lot of attention from us in light of everything else that we're doing with the light staff.
Thank you for those details. That's helpful. And I would just say that when I look at everything on this list, I don't know for myself as well whether that's a high priority. I tend to want to, excuse me, want to make sure that we tick off those things with target dates that have either passed or very close. And there are other things like supporting school recruitment efforts that seem really important to me, or modernization. So I'll just put that out for the board to think about. Otherwise, all the other action plans, I look forward to us moving forward with them.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item? Hearing none. Agenda item 9 is future meetings. Ms. Fenner, did you have something for us on that agenda item?
Yes, I just want to plant a seed for the board. I'm going to date board member O'Neill and I, when we were first appointed to this board, that was in 2008. And at that time, this board met every other month. And board members were encouraged to attend any and all trade association meetings and conventions. Between then and now, we've gone through several economic downturns. And from that time to today, we've done a lot of budget tightening. And that has resulted in this board meeting once, maybe twice a year. The fact that we went through the COVID experience and being forced into the remote meeting platform has had two really broad effects on this board. I think both of them positive. First, we have the cost savings that I outlined when I talked about our budget reports. Secondly, we've had, I think, a great increase in the public's ability to attend our board meetings. And so I think that we, especially during this time when we have a slim board as far as the number of our board members, it's important that we get as much public input as possible so that our decisions can be as well informed as possible. So I think that what I would like to recommend to the board that, while I understand that we are opening up and we will expect restrictions to lift, emergency restrictions to lift, while we're under the emergency measures that allow us to meet remotely, that we increase the number of meetings to 3. So that would put us, what I'm proposing is July, November, and then March of 2022. So if that meets with the board's pleasure, then I'll poll you, offline just to check calendars. But it seems to me that meeting more often and maybe not such a long day, we may be able to further the business of the board more efficiently.
Thank you for that. We have a staff recommendation to meet 3 times a year. going forward, July, November, and March. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment before the board moves to discussion and a decision?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please click that Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or raise your hand. Audio-only participants can raise their hand by pressing *3. All right, this is the moderator again. Not seeing any comments. Would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
All right.
Seeing or hearing no public comment, do any of the board members wish to comment? I see board member Hurt's hand up.
Thank you. I am happy to go along with the staff recommendation. I think the online platform has really opened the process up to many individuals who would not be able to come in person, and to use that as a way to meet more often. And as it was noted, historically, we were trying to be lean with our budget. This fits the bill, so I am happy to meet more often and have shorter meetings for sure. Thank you for the recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you. And board member O'Neill, your hand is raised.
Yes, and I would echo what Mr. Hurt just said. I do remember the old days when it was every other month, and I felt, it was easier and more efficient, I think, that, that we could stay on top of it. And I understand all the dynamics behind where we are today, but, we might as well take advantage of the platform that we're using now and have that additional meeting added to the roster of meetings per year.
Thank you. And it is my understanding that we do not need to vote on this item. Instead, we will simply direct staff to pull the board members offline to set board meetings for the rest of the fiscal year. So the next agenda item is closed session. The board has no matters to hear in closed session, and so I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move approval to close the meeting.
Thank you, board member Hurt. Do we have a second?
There's actually no need. You can go ahead and close the meeting as the chair.
Okay. Tony, you were muted. I saw you. I saw you talking, but we've been directed we don't need a motion to adjourn, so I will declare us adjourned. Thank you very much for the board and the members of the public who attended our meeting today, and members of the DCA, all those who helped with our moderator, everyone. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your help.
Thank you, Chair and staff. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.